Hey, welcome everybody. For those of you that don't know, I'm Professor Lauren Applegate. I am, and most of these people are in my Portuguese 250 course on women authors or authors of the women authors of the Portuguese speaking world, of Luso-Brazilian world. Today, we're going to be having a wonderful talk from Dr. Marília Librandi Rocha of Princeton and Sao Paulo originally, but working at Princeton, an expert in Luso-Brazilian studies and in Clarice Lispector, our author of the day. This is an event organized by the Portuguese section of the Department of Spanish and Portuguese and supported by the Center for Brazilian Studies here at SDSU. So we're very grateful for that support. And we're extremely grateful to have Dr. Librandi here with us today. Dr. Librandi is on faculty, of course, like I said, at Princeton, and it has not only taught there, but also at the Universidade Estadual do Sudoeste da Bahia in Brazil and at Stanford. So, you know, not too shabby, everyone, I'd say, and has multiple different research focuses on the novel and poetry, indigenous thought, literary theory. She has specifically in terms of research published on Clarice Lispector, the novel Writing by Ear, Clarice Lispector on the oral novel, which came out very recently in the University of Toronto Press in 2018, and then in Brazil under a Brazilian title in 2020. So last year, the year of the beginning of the pandemic that we're still all in. So I want to say welcome to Dr. Librandi Rocha, bem-vinda, and welcome to all of you. How it's going to work today is we're going to, you all have, at least the ones that are in my class, have read at least one short story by Clarice Lispector, The Chicken, Uma Galinha. And Dr. Librandi is going to give us a talk, and then we're going to have some interaction with you all. So I know you have questions ready. I know we have things that you've written and been thinking about. And we're going to get started. Dr. Librandi, bem-vinda.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lauren, for the invitation. Thank you, you all, for being here to listen to my short presentation on Lispector. I'm very grateful for the invitation and to meet Crystal here also. I know she's working now with the Center of Brazilian Studies, right? So thank you very much, Lauren, Ricardo, who is also part of this invitation. So it is a pleasure for me. I taught in California for almost 10 years. And now I'm here in the East Coast suffering from the very cold weather. But so I'm very glad to be sharing this kind of reading experience with and together with the text of Clarice Lispector. So I don't know how we will, the idea is that we'll be sharing ideas, but mostly I hope I can kind of give a general presentation and then open up for us to discuss, because I want to hear from you, your experience reading Clarice, if it's the first text. In Brazil, we call her for her first name. In general, authors, literary authors, we call for the first name. We have this kind of intimate relationship with the author we read. And so I will share with you my screen here to start, because I really want to do that quickly, not very quickly, but at least to have time to listen to you. So I entitled this talk, "The Chicken is a Being," which is a sentence from the short story. And the whole idea is that what kind of being is a chicken in the text of Clarice Lispector? And what does this sentence mean for us? The chicken is a being, right? But what kind of, let's say, animal-human relationship we have here from the perspective of the narrator in this short story, but also in relation to other short stories and text by Clarice. So briefly, I'd like to introduce to you the book I wrote. This book, it's called Writing by Ear, Clarice Lispector and the Oral Novel. and it has just been published in Brazil as Escrever de Ouvido, Clarice Lispector e os Romances da Escuta. So this book came out after teaching a class on Lispector at Stanford. And then I found, I read a sentence from her in the book, The Hour of the Star, and her last novel published when she was, her last published book when she was alive, just before her death. And in this book, the narrator says, I wrote by ear, like I learned English and French by ear. So I was kind of obsessed with this sentence. What does it mean to write by ear? So the book is an investigation about that. And so it has these chapters here. And one of the chapters, I mean, I'm not focused on that because I was not reading the short story, The Chicken here, but I was focusing or quoting other texts where animals appear like horses, or in special, this one, the Echo-Poetics of G.H., which is a chapter, a focus on the novel The Passion According to G.H. that Clarice published in 1964. And so the idea is that I talk about the chicken and then try to present to you what is this idea of an echo-poetics. So it's a poetics that is related to ecology, let us say like this, to an expansion to the eye, to the world around, also including, of course, animals and plants. But it's an ecology taught from the idea of listening and echoing and listening. And so we'll get to this point later on in this presentation. So Clarice Lispector, only two beautiful photos of her here. And she wrote kids book in 1974 called A Vida Íntima de Laura, The Intimate Life of Laura, which was a chicken. I will quote this book later to you here. But before starting the conversation, I'd like to share with you. So let me go to this other screen here. I would like to show you this website that we have created here at Princeton past year to commemorate Clarice 100 years birthday, centenary, right? So I will show you the site soon, but here you find clarice.princeton.edu. You have a podcast, you have videos, and it's a very nice research for your research about Clarice. But I would like to show you this interview. I don't know if you have access to this interview. It's online. It's also here in the website. It's the last interview that Clarice gave in her life in 1977. And it's a very impressive interview. We have a contact with the author, and then we kind of feel what kind of strange woman she was, intense and very very special woman. And I have only selected a short passage here when she speaks the following. Let us listen. There is a legend, subtitles here for you.
Você se considera uma escritora popular?
Não.
Por qual razão?
Me chamam até de hermética. Como é que posso ser popular sendo hermética?
E como você vê essa observação que nós colocamos entre aspas, hermética?
Eu me compreendo. De modo que eu não sou hermética para mim. Bom, tem um conto meu que eu não compreendo muito bem.
Que conto?
O Ovo e a Galinha.
Entre os seus diversos trabalhos.
Okay, so here she's quoting one of the interviewer is asking her, are you a popular writer? And she says, no, they call me hermetic. And I think that part of the interest of the short story, The Chicken, is that it's very simple in terms of narrative, right? But there is something hermetic in this text. Why is this narrator telling us that story? What is the message here? And then here she quotes another text that she wrote later on called The Egg and the Chicken, O Ovo e a Galinha, which is a long short story, which she said, I don't understand that. And it's a very hermetic text. It's a whole kind of metaphysical, fictional, philosophical, ecological narration about an egg and the chicken. And it's kind of the impossibility of defining what are these beings, the egg and the chicken. So this is to give you a short context about how important is her relationship with the chicken in her life and in her other writings. So here, only to show you a little bit of the website, we have here, for example, it's a, I don't know if you know him, but Chico Buarque de Holanda. It's a very important composer, musician in Brazil, and he is reading a passage from Lispector here. He was interviewed by her because she worked as a journalist also. And so what we did, we invited people from many parts of the world to read passages they prefer from Clarice. So you can search here and you'll find people from reading in English, in Portuguese, in Spanish, in Hindi, in Japanese, very short passages of Clarice Lispector. So it's a very nice podcast. And here in videos, we have the video of the conference we have organized past year. In this conference, I have interviewed Paulo Gurgel Valente, which is Lispector's son. Then there is a short conversation with the translators of Lispector into English, Idra, Johnny, and Katrina. And then there is a very beautiful talk by Jhumpa Lahiri, which is a writer, and she loves Clarice. It's a very beautiful, beautiful conference about her work. And here we have a whole musical celebration to her centenary. And then you have these composers from Brazil, Beatriz Azevedo and Moreno Veloso. And also we have Maria Bethânia reading a passage from Clarice. And this is to show you how popular Clarice is in Brazil, how her work gets the attention of theater adaptations, musical adaptations, film adaptations. So she's really kind of the greatest of women Brazilian writers nowadays, for sure, right? Okay, so let me go back now to my other screen, which was this one. Okay, so very briefly, Clarice was born on December 10th. She was born in 1920 in Ukraine. And at the moment, her parents were fleeing persecution as a Russian Jewish, escaping from the persecution that happened in these years, unfortunately. And so they, for a family connection, they got visas to Brazil. I think they first tried to go to the United States, but the visa was denied at this moment. They get a family in Brazil and they settle in northeastern Brazil, first in Maceió, in Alagoas, and then they moved to Recife in Pernambuco. So the first kind of 10 or 12 years old of her life, Clarice arrived in Brazil, she was 1 year old, right? So there was also this huge discussion about, I am a Brazilian writer. I was not born in Brazil, but Portuguese is my language. But at the same time, there is some kind of foreign accent of Clarice's text, of Clarice being, and comes from this very difficult experience of migration. And also her life in the northeastern of Brazil also kind of gave her an overview of Brazil's poorest states. And this will be reflected in her very empathetic mode of writing about vulnerability, and especially in her last novel, The Hour of the Star. Her mother died when she was 9 years old, and this was a very terrible, impactful event for her life. And this is important to highlight because it will be part of her literature, right? So she'll be constantly writing about birth and death and motherhood. And part of the interest of the chicken is related to motherhood, right? Well, her family moved, her father and two other sisters, they moved to Rio de Janeiro in 1937. She studied law, but she never practiced it. And she started writing as a journalist. And her first novel, which is an amazing, beautiful novel, Near to the Wild Heart, was published in 1943 when she was 23 years old. And it was an immediate success. Critics and readers, it was a very intimate life of a young girl named Joana. I really highly recommend this novel. It's an amazing text. This same year, she married to a diplomat, Mauri Gurgel Valente, and they left Brazil, and she lived abroad almost for 16 years, including the United States. I think 6 or 7 years in the United States, where she had her second child here in Washington, right? Okay, so I will focus only to introduce the Laços de Família, which is this book of short stories where we have the chicken. And what is interesting here is that, kind of related to her biography, Clarice, she divorced from her husband officially in 1959. And she moved back to Brazil. She left Washington, she moved back to Brazil. And then we have this sequence of books where is family ties. So every short story here is related to a certain family tie specifically, right? So it's kind of, there is something that she represents in the family life, which means in general, women, wives, mothers, husbands and kids, and also animals. And there is a certain disturbance, but the ties are there, right? However, very close to this book, she published a second book of short stories, which called The Foreign Legion in 1964, together in the same year when she published The Passion According to GH. And here, it's a very interesting relationship because the family ties kind of get disturbed, and we have this foreignness. We have so if here we have the chicken story where we see a family situation, in the Foreign Legion we have this hermetic text that she's quoting, that she's quoting in the interview, where is the egg and the chicken. And now there is no more family environment. It's only the kind of the object that fascinates her in terms of their strangeness and what their existence mean to us human beings. So, and then we have The Passion According to GH, which is one of the masterpieces of 20th century novels, and where a woman living in Rio de Janeiro met a cockroach. And the whole novel is the intense relationship between that woman and the cockroach and the animal. So you see that we go from a human tie family situation to a more strange ambience in the texts. So before going to the story, I'd like to quote to you this Eleni Sixus. She's a writer and philosopher, and she getting love with, sorry, my English is sometimes is not as good as I would like. I'm speaking Portuguese more and more, and English is a foreign language for me. But here, what we have, she says, Clarice's texts, like Kafka's, are not narratives. They contain a secret, a lesson, but this secret and this lesson are dispersed in the verbal space in such a way that the meaning cannot be apprehended at a first reading. Right? So I think this is very true for most of her stories, and in special for the chicken. So kind of our discussions will be, what is this lesson? What is the secret? What is at stake in this short story? So now I'm sharing to you my other here. So, Uma Galinha, I'm basing my quotations from the translation by Katrina Dodson. I don't know if it's the same that you have, but anyway, you can follow the quotations here. And I highlighted some passages because it will help our discussion and to refresh our memory. So here it's in Portuguese and here is in English. So the short story starts as she was a Sunday chicken, still alive because it wasn't yet 9 in the morning. She seemed calm. Since Saturday, she had been huddling in a corner of the kitchen. She looked at no one looked at her. Even when they selected her, filling up her intimate parts indifferently, they couldn't tell whether she was fat or skinny. No one would ever guess she had a yearning. Right? So, nunca se adivinharia nela anseio or any kind of will. So, here, there is an action happening here. So, what is the action? What is happening here? Why they selected her? And this is for you to answer if you can. Are they selecting her for what?
To eat her?
To eat her, exactly, Maria Clara, exactly, right? So she was a Sunday chicken. She was there. She was, so it would probably saying it's a Sunday, it's a day to eat a chicken, right? But still alive because it wasn't yet 9 in the morning. So look how interesting it is, this way of starting a short story. She's not telling us, okay, here is a family, it's a Sunday, they want to eat a chicken, and then, no. It's like, it's kind of, she's still alive. We don't know what will happen, but she's still alive. So it's a death is coming to happen, right? And they selected her to eat her. And so let's have in mind that we have this question about the chicken is a being. So what kind of being is a chicken, right? So here, no one would ever guess she had a yearning or an anseio or any kind of will. Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
the translation we have is from the Oxford Anthology of the Brazilian Short Story, which is Kenneth David Jackson's work.
Oh, okay.
Instead of yearning, it's translated as anxious.
Anxious.
Which changes quite a bit.
Which, yeah.
The feeling of the drive, the need that everybody has. Did you all see that? Can you see that, everybody? And don't be shy. You guys all read the story, at least the ones that are in my class. And so don't be shy. And if there are differences, we can bring them up. But that is an interesting difference. I think the translation here makes a difference.
Makes a difference. And then you see how important it is to have more than one translation and to pay attention, right? And of these choices, because exactly, it's not anxious, right? It's anseio. Anseio, it's vontade, it's a will, right? Or so it's not. It can be any kind of feeling. It's a feeling, right? But I don't know exactly which one. And then she escapes, right? It came as a surprise when they saw her flap her wings made for brief flight, puff her chest, and in 2 or 3 bursts reach the terrace railing, right? So it's a surprise because she's made for brief flight, and although she escapes, and And then the chase started, right? The father started going to follow the chicken from rooftop to rooftop. And then this is another very interesting sentence. Ill adapted to a wilder struggle for life, the chicken had to decide for herself which way to go without any help from her race, right? Alone in the world without father or mother, she ran, painting, mute, focused, right? So this idea that she's not prepared to fight or to be in this kind of savage, the savage fight for life. It's something that she's not adapted to, right? And she needed to decide by herself without any help for her race. So we are kind of getting a description of what kind of being is a chicken here, right? And then what happened? And then she seemed so free, stupid, timid, and free, right? So it's a story of escape. It's a story of action, right? And then we have this another very interesting sentence. What was it in her guts that made her a being? The chicken is a being. It's true, you couldn't count on her for anything. Even she didn't count on herself for anything, right? So it's a crude description of this being, which is, although she has no control over her actions completely, although she's stupid and timid, she was able to escape for free, right? So there is a kind of maybe an ambivalence or a contradiction here, because she's stupid, but nonetheless she's escaping death, right? And suddenly, then what happened? Surprise. That's when it happened, right? Completely frantic, the chicken laid an egg. Surprised and exhausted, perhaps it was premature, but right after, born as she was for maternity, she looked like an old, experienced mother. She sat on the egg and stayed there, breathing, her eyes buttoning up and unbuttoning, right? So when they caught the chicken, she gave birth. So she was born for maternity, right? So then we have a very important layer of this being born for maternity, to give birth to an egg, right? So let's say that this very kind of silly animal or silly being, or kind of why there is chicken in the world, she is entitled to this very important act of giving birth to an egg. And if we read The Egg and the Chicken, this other short story, then you see how the egg, of course, is this, and thus the chicken is this big picture about giving birth to the universe. The egg is like the universe. The egg is like a planet, right? The egg is the beginning of life. Okay, so Mama, don't kill the chicken anymore. She laid an egg. She cares about us, said the little girl, right? Warming her offspring, she was neither gentle nor standoffish, neither cheerful nor sad. She was nothing. She was a chicken, which wouldn't suggest any special feeling. So again, right? She gives birth, but she's nothing. She is a chicken, from the perspective of the human animals that we are, right? So the chicken had become queen of the house after giving birth to the egg. Everyone except her knew it. She continues to be stupid. She has no conscience. She carried on between the kitchen and the back terrace, employing her twin talents, apathy and alarm, right? And then here, though not even then would the expression change on her empty head, fleeing, resting, giving birth, or pecking corn. It was a chicken's head, the same one designed at the start of the centuries, until one day they killed her, ate her, and years went by. So the story ends very quickly like this, right? She's the queen of the house. No one will touch her, but then they forget, right? And sometimes she remembers her act of fleeing, escaping. And when she remembers, right, she felt something, but until one day they killed her and ate her, and years went by. So, and these years went by, it's a fable, a fabula, no? It's a story that means a kind of lesson to us. So I'm almost finishing, but before opening the discussion, I'd like to read with you. He did his doctorate, his thesis on Lispector, and he's a student who spent the time with me when I was teaching at Stanford, and he did that. He's a Brazilian student in Berlin, and he did a thesis about Clarice Lispector and the post-human discussions in philosophy and in science. And then he quote, is Thales, his name, and Thales Castro. And he quote this book by Annie Potts, Chicken, published in 2012, where she says, while chickens display feelings comparable to those of humans, such as grief, fear, or happiness, they no doubt also possess their own forms of emotion and consciousness that even the most rigorous scientific tests may not begin to uncover, simply because these inimitable perspectives of chickens do not register conceptually or experientially within the human domain. Right? So there is a way of being a chicken that we cannot grasp. There is the chicken perspective that we cannot understand because it's not like us, human beings, right? So let us say that Clarice in her texts, not only with chicken, but especially with chicken, has a way of kind of giving a certain perspective of chickens, right? Through her fiction. And then here, other texts from her, from The Egg and the Hen in the Foreign Legion. For example, we had, I understand myself. Well, there's one story I don't understand, The Egg and the Hen, which is a mystery to me. Clarice spent hours with the chickens and hens in the yard when she was a little girl. I understand a hen perfectly. I mean, the intimate life of a hen. I know how it is. She even said, I imitate hand. I know how they, for example, and then in her novel, which is also part of a column that she wrote for journals, for newspapers, she has this intense reflection that came from the mouth of a character, which is a man, and the text says, "Of course, we should eat it, the chicken. We have to remember and respect the violence we have. Small violence save us from greater. Who knows, if we didn't eat animals, we would eat people in their blood. Our life is brutal, Lorelei. We are born in blood, and with blood, the possibility of perfect union is forever cut, the umbilical cord. And many are they who die with blood spilled inside or out. We have to believe in blood as an important part of life. Brutality is love as well." So here it's a very intense passage, and in Clarice we have many of these intensities, right? Where she says, well, of course we should eat the chicken because it's part of the brutal violence that is part of our lives. And we need to accept the violence too. Right? So this is, let us discuss this idea together, right? And then there is this Laura's intimate life, which is one of her stories for children that she published in 1974, right? And then again, we have another reflection. There is a way of eating hens called hen in black sauce. Have you ever eaten it? The sauce is made with the hen's blood. But you can't buy a dead hen. She has to be alive and killed at home to be able to use the blood. And I don't do that. I don't kill the hens, but it's good food. You eat it with well-cooked white rice, right? So, and then there is this story about Olga Borelli was her friend. And then she said, on the day Laura's intimate life came out, to celebrate, went out to eat just that, a hen in black sauce. She then gave me a copy of the book with a dedication to Olga, to the little Laura whom we ate. Right? So we see here the whole spectrum from love, violence, from giving birth to eat and to survive by eating other beings, right? That is part of life. So I think I open the discussion before quoting for you the last part, which is related to her other relationship with other animals, because it will explain the idea of an echo-poetics to you.